A wise hobbit once said, "I know I don't look it, but I'm beginning to feel it in my heart. I feel thin, sort of stretched, like butter scraped over too much bread." And that, my friend, is Bilbo Baggins talking about something that I relate to as an artist every single day. Feeling totally and completely overwhelmed. Hi guys, Heather R. Hitchman here. Today we're going to talk about feeling overwhelmed and some tips that I can give to help you overcome that. As somebody that struggles with anxiety, I happen to know a lot about being overwhelmed, so I hope that these tricks that I've learned along the way help you guys out too. I found that it was really important to find ways to cope with being overwhelmed because it was starting to affect my daily life. I basically would see this big mountain of responsibility standing in front of me, like this impossible task, and it would paralyze me. I wouldn't get anything done, and I wouldn't even be able to relax because I was feeling so overwhelmed by everything I had to do. And then I would go to bed, I'd wake up the next day, and that mountain would still be there with no progress made and less time to do it. So I had to come up with some coping mechanisms to move forward, and here are my top 5 tips for dealing with feelings of being overwhelmed. Tip number 1, make physical lists. And I know we've talked about this before, but I just want to reiterate because this tip has been the most helpful. It's the most easy to implement, and it really does make a difference. Making these physical lists has helped me to remove that clutter from my mind that was just a running endless list of responsibilities that I needed to take care of. And by removing that from my mind and putting it somewhere physical, that freed up my brain to be able to focus on what I needed to get done that day. There's 2 different kinds of lists that I use. One is Google Calendar. That's where I keep track of all my important dates and appointments, and I can set up alerts so I don't forget, and I can set up reminders on my phone, so it's great. The second kind of list that I use is this. I have a little notebook right here on my desk that I make a list of what I want to get accomplished that day. And then when I'm done, I highlight it with my pretty pink highlighter, and it makes me feel accomplished, and it gives me that little dopamine ping that, we all crave to survive. So try lists. They're awesome. Tip number 2, prioritize. This one is probably going to take a little bit longer to implement because it takes time. Because the first thing you need to do is figure out what your priorities are, and that's not an easy question to answer, and it's going to be different based on what your goals are as an artist. For me, I realized that my priority was not to take client work or to be the best freelancer ever. I wanted to make my own brand. So I started prioritizing my time so that I was still able to work and feed my family, but start working on my brand as well. And then slowly over the years, I've transitioned into being able to take less commission work and do more of my own IP, which is now our primary source of income. Living the dream! So yeah, prioritizing will definitely help you figure out what matters most to you and what you need to spend the most time on. It'll also help you feel less guilty if you don't do something that is a low priority. Tip number 3. Yes, that's 3. And I need you to hear this. It's okay to say no. Guys, so many opportunities, tasks, and obligations are going to come up as you become a more successful artist. And I realized quickly that I'm just not physically able to do all of these things. And so I had to start to learn how to say no. And it's hard at first, but here are 3 easy things that you can say no to right off the bat, and this will be good practice. Number 1 is commissions that pay too low or take up too much time. So in order to combat this, I tripled all of my commission prices, and that cut my work down, but also when I get a job, it pays enough to cover all of those other commissions that I didn't get. Another thing to keep in mind, as your prices rise, the caliber of your client usually rises with it. So don't be afraid to lose your audience. A new audience will start to form. The second thing that you can say no to without guilt are extra responsibilities, unpaid or underpaid. So a great story that I like to tell about this is once when I was working at this summer camp teaching kids arts and crafts, the art director wanted us to come in one weekend and basically help her move some furniture around and remodel. And we all just kind of sat there in stunned silence until one of the other women finally asked, well, is it paid? And she said, well, no, I thought you would come in due to your dedication and love for the company. And she kind of chuckled and was like, no, I'm not doing that. And that always stuck with me, because had she not spoken up, I probably would have said yes out of guilt. And that company and that job means nothing to me now. So it would have just been a colossal waste of my time. So, if your time is valuable to you, give it to those that are deserving and that are going to treat your time with the dignity that it deserves. So the third thing that you can definitely say no to easily is doing favors for friends of a friend. Like that friend of your friend that wants you to illustrate all of their artwork for their Kickstarter for free. Just say no. It's not going to move you forward as an artist, and it's just going to reinforce the idea that artists need to be starving and not paid. So don't do those things. You could easily spend that time working on your portfolio to get actual paying client work or your own IP and go sell it at conventions and online. So say no to those three things. It's also okay to ask for help. You'd be surprised how willing and able your partner, your family members, or your fans are to help you with things. So don't be afraid to ask. If people offer, take them up on it. It's a great way to build your community and also take off some of the stress from your own plate. Sometimes it can actually make the person that's helping you feel really important and closer to you. So don't be afraid to ask for help if you really need it, or hire somebody if you can afford it. Okay, so tip number 4, remember, it's one thing at a time. This is the mantra that I say in my head constantly, or if somebody is trying to distract me from what I'm working on, I'll say, hold on, I need to focus on the task at hand. And anybody that has worked with me at a convention knows that I say this quite often. That's because I don't want to get overwhelmed by being distracted with other things. So I kind of just picture that big mountain in my head, and I've got my little chisel, and I'm making just one little bite at it at a time, one little chisel every day. And that might sound like, oh, gosh, it's going to take forever and I'll never get done. Well, yeah, it's an art career. It takes a lifetime to develop, but taking your chisel and making 5 or 6 little holes that day is way more productive than sitting at the base of the mountain and crying because there's a mountain in your way. Those days are over. Now you're equipped to move forward and deal with it and eventually make that tunnel through that mountain to your successful, thriving art career. And the last tip I want to say, tip number 5, is admittedly from a meme I saw the other day, but it really stuck with me. And it said, if you do not make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. Oh, God, guys, that one just really got me in the heart, because there have been times where my urge to be a chronic overachiever has completely taken over, and I have just worked every day from dawn to dusk and not taken any time for myself, and I've gone into serious burnout, really bad, and I've had to take a week or 2 off and not do anything because my body just gave out on me, and I needed to recover my physical and mental state. And had I had just taken a few hours each day to do something fun for myself, then I probably would not have had those weeks of chronic, just giving out happen. And, I have to remind myself, I'm not a machine. You are not a machine. We are human beings that need hugs. We need to eat ice cream, and we need to go have fun and do things. Not just because those things are going to keep us alive, but they're also going to inspire the art that we're going to make. I've found that when I take this time every day to relax and do something that's fun and turns my brain off, this is crucial. It has to be something that really just takes your mind out of work mode. Then I found that I'm creating work in a much more peaceful place, and the work is so much better. So those are my 5 tips for overcoming being overwhelmed. I hope that they really helped you guys, and they've really helped me, so I hope that they help you. What tips do you guys use for tackling being overwhelmed? What's overwhelming you right now? What plans do you have in place to kind of tackle those mountains in front of you? This has been Heather R. Hitchman. You can find my work on patreon.com/Terratoff or on heatherhitchman.com. Thanks, guys. I will see you in a few more weeks. Ta-ta!